All right, guys, another interview, something a little bit different. This is my good friend Nour. I met him the first time I ever came to the New York Stock Exchange. He welcomed me here, and it was definitely a great experience, especially being with him and Peter. The thing was, when I met Nour, he was an intern on Wall Street, and he was helping out Peter. And a few months later, he's now on the floor and looks like he's been here for 20 plus years. So I wanted to get a different perspective. Obviously, we got Peter's perspective. I want to get Nour's perspective just because he's newer and he's just getting accustomed to things. So, Nour, thank you for being here. One of the first questions I asked my students to ask you was, what's the biggest difference from your experience as an intern versus now? I know obviously things get a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
As an intern, you were still probably rushing to work and all that good stuff, but what's the biggest difference you feel as a full-time trader here?
There's definitely a lot of huge differences. When you're an intern, you're really restricted as to what you can do. One of the main things we do down here as brokers is we trade for institutions. So to do that, you have to pass your Series 19, which is, a lot of people know the 7 and the 63,
Correct.
a bunch of different exams. That's specific to this building. So
19 is specific for the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, so
okay.
It's a very limited amount of people that have that. That basically certifies you as a broker down here.
Got it.
I think next month they're going to be showing up, but I'm actually signing the book for
I
that.
can't wait.
Which is a ceremony that every single broker in the history of the exchange has signed their name into this book, which is really special. But when you're an intern, you're really restricted to more day-to-day input for data, stuff like that, helping to share some news with the head traders, but you can't actually trade yourself. And as someone who started out with just normally trading for myself like anyone else during a crazy post-COVID market, to actually see how the business works, the business of trading, after I learned the craft of trading, that's what's really exciting to me. How do anyone from a family office to a large investment bank execute their stock?
Correct.
What type of clearing methods do they need to use? Because when you're making large buy and sell orders in the market, you want to make sure you're not impacting the price. You want to have liquidity.
Yep.
You want to be using algorithms to get yourself a better average. These are all things that honestly all traders should take advantage of to the best of their ability. But when you're a broker down here and you're past level of an intern, it gives you the ability not only to see how that works, but to do it day to day.
Sick. That's dope. How does it feel to see that type of money every single day?
It is crazy, I've had a lot of highs and lows in trading myself, but to see hundreds of millions of dollars that's being transacted all over the place throughout the day it's something that even to this day I'm still like, wow, like I'm trading on behalf of a client, and these are just really crazy numbers. And as long as you're doing your job the right way, there's a lot of parameters set to make sure nothing goes wrong. But you always want to make sure you're double checking everything you do.
And after, how long has it been officially that you've become a trader?
So I started interning about 2 years ago. I spent a full year interning.
I saw you about a year ago.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was towards the end of it. And a lot of interns here, it's hard to get to that next level of becoming a broker. I started as a broker last July.
Started as a broker as of July?
Yes,
so
as
it's been
of last July.
Like 6 months-ish?
Yes, correct.
Sick. And in those 6 months, I know we just talked about the money that you see every single day. Is it still kind of weird to grasp it? Because at what point is it just you following, what you need to do for the day as far as, the algorithm obviously not affecting the price like you said? Is it easy to kind of grasp that those numbers are those numbers? Looking at 100 million on a screen is different than seeing 100 million in person.
Quick math becomes really important.
Yep.
Some orders a client wants to be 30% of the volume throughout the day in a stock. So you need to make sure that you're using an algorithm that matches that. But if the algorithm is a little bit off, you need to be looking at how many shares you've executed, and sometimes within a second, find a way to catch up to that volume order. That's just one example. But really being able to make quick math decisions and not stressing about it and trusting that, okay, I've done this a million times before, this does not have to be done any differently. That's what helps me personally. The really interesting thing is we have the opening and the closing auction, which is very important here. A lot of retail traders, they're trading throughout the day, so do firms. But on the open and the close, that's when these large institutions can meet a lot of other large institutions and flow from wherever and make quick trades. So we have special orders that we can use to, gain access to that. And when you're trying to, put in an order seconds before the close, when you're hearing 100 bells and whistles all around you, people screaming at the bell, someone else from another firm is screaming about something else. It's you'll be in a calm environment for 2 hours, like how we just saw, out of nowhere, something just shows up. And it's just really being prepared at all times for moments like that.
Fire. This is a funny one. When I entered on Wall Street, obviously I wasn't here. I was at the Trump building.
Yep.
Since we were interns, we were the runarounds. So someone needed lunch, someone needed water. You're not saying no, Was there any of that here when you first started?
Definitely. a lot of that. A lot of getting the lunch. The hard part is, and now it's not as bad because it's cold.
Yeah.
But my first days were the hottest days of the year in July, 2 years ago, I think now. And I want to look presentable. I'm wearing a very heavy suit. I'm wearing all this stuff. And honestly, most of the other people weren't even doing that. I just wanted to have that professional look. I spent the last 4 years before that trading by myself at home, and a large reason as to why I wanted to come here, and when I came here, I wanted to stay here, is to have somewhere else to go where I can relate to people with the trading. So I definitely took it very stereotypical finance guy on Wall Street at first. I've since calmed down, but I'm running around, getting lunch from a mile away in 99 degrees. And I'm wearing this huge suit, and I'm like, wow, now I'm sweating like crazy. It's like, it was stressful at the time, but looking back at it, those are the experiences that really, shape you as a person.
People don't really understand that unless they are doing, it doesn't have to be in New York, but working in the summer and having to take, I don't know if you took the train or subway.
Yeah, I did.
Take the train, then the subway, and then walk blocks before you even get to...
You were doing the same type of stuff too.
I'm running here.
It's hard to explain that to people that haven't done it.
Yeah.
It's an experience.
They'll look at that and be like, it's just a mile. Oh, yeah. Dress shoes on, suit, you're sweating. You just came off a subway that's, burning.
And then as soon as you get back, right back
to work.
Right
back to work. And you got to get into the office and not breathe heavy so nobody gets annoyed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious. So, I went through that, and it's just funny to ask because I'm sure everybody who becomes an intern...
That's relatable to so many people.
Yeah, it's the right way. It's like the veterans here, they get to do whatever the hell they want, and then we work ourselves up.
Exactly. And I love the process of that journey, and that relates to trading very well too. When you first start, you're taking all sorts of different types of trades, and a lot of them are just not going your way. But over time, you gain respect in yourself, your ability as a trader to know, okay, I don't need to go and do what I was doing before, and now I can focus on how I'm actually going to make more money. But then, and I really love how you do it. All right. I love how you do it. Then you want to bring other people in, teach them how you got to where you are, and give that back in a way.
For sure.
And then, if you can create a business model where that benefits everyone, that's really the future of trading, in my opinion.
For sure. And a lot of people asked and wanted me to ask, how do you end up becoming you, Niall, and how do you becoming another Niall on the floor, either becoming an intern and possibly getting that job? Because usually you don't come straight into a job when you come over here. What was your prior history to this? What is your experience? Obviously, you went to college.
Yes.
So just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I was 18, 4 years ago, I'm 22 now, I didn't know what I wanted with my future.
Okay.
I remember I applied to a local PetSmart in a local pizzeria, and the pizza guy asked me, have you ever made a pizza before? And I said, no. And I'm like, I can't even get hired at these places. What am I going to do? Yeah. I end up going home that day, and I look up how to make money online. I find a guy who's live streaming named Mitch Ray. I absorb everything I can from him, and I started trading myself. And the market starts tanking March of 2020, and I'm making all this free money immediately. Everyone else is like, what is going on? And it's a great time for a lot of like-minded 18-year-olds getting into the market for the first time. And then 2022 happens, and we see this first correction for a lot of us young traders. And that's really where I personally feel like I set myself apart, where I realized, okay, that was not a lucky period, somewhat a lucky period, but a very new age of trading. Right. How can I capitalize off of this? And I spent my whole entire college, sorry if my parents hear this, not going to classes, just staying in and trading, not going out, not partying, just learning this craft. And eventually I got that to the point of, live streaming online, sharing what I was doing, and, starting a WAP and all, that whole entire way that a lot of traders go. And I loved it, and I really still love it to this day. Being able to speak about how the market is so important and how especially young people should get involved. Eventually that ended up getting me a tour to the floor with Peter.
Sick.
And it was my first time really seeing, what I figured was like the center of the world for the stock market. And I just wanted to be around it more. So at the end of it, I was super clammy, nervous. I'm like, hey, Peter, if you have any extra work, I'd love to help out. Didn't think too much of it, but I shot my shot. And then 4 months later, his son calls me up randomly, who's now, one of my greatest mentors, Benny. And he said, hey, if you're able to make it here, we'd love to have you for a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I have 1 month. Let me just go and see what happens. I moved, I got an Airbnb here in the city. And I was actually in Europe at the time when he called me. He's like, can you be here next week? Had a few weeks left of my trip. I'm like, I will be there next week.
Yeah.
Cut that trip short, come to the floor, and immediately, like I said earlier, I was learning the business of trading. That's what really stood out to me. That's where I can see myself finding a lot of longevity.
Correct.
And I realized that there are not a lot of retail traders, especially, or just 22-year-olds, 21-year-olds getting into this business nowadays.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nepotism, there's a lot of fathers, sons. And then, they created, different things. And I admire the people that took it and ran with it. But a lot of people in finance, especially, just get handed things. And that's really, their story. And then they pass it on too.
Yep.
So to separate myself, I had to really, figure out how can I be of the most help. If a trader is super stressed and they don't want to think about their lunch, go get their lunch. If you know that a stock is moving, if you can find the news before anyone else and relay that information, that benefits the client, that benefits the firm.
Yep.
If we're doing data input, even though it might feel repetitive, the faster I can transcribe this data, the faster it can make other people money. Mm-hmm. It's really putting myself, it's networking, it's putting yourself out there once you get the opportunity, and when that opportunity comes to you, being ready for it.
Yeah.
So you can go, and this relates to a lot of, I feel like, guys my age, you can go 3 years without anything happening. But if you spend those 3 years really working on yourself, the second even you get a 10% chance of making it, you can take that and run with it. Yep. And that was my whole mindset.
And what's cool is you got to work with like good people. I mean, yes. Peter and Benny are probably one of the easiest and outgoing people that you could possibly meet in life in just general, not just at work. So it's great that was your first experience at the New York Stock Exchange versus, some other guy that might have given you some trouble and it might have been a communication issue.
Yeah.
But it's dope. And a lot of people look at this and be like, how hard is it to, work at the stock exchange? You have to remember there's only one New York Stock Exchange, right? And you just talked about it. You need a Series 19.
Correct.
Which is specifically to be here at the New York Stock Exchange.
Yes.
There are plenty of hedge funds in this world, plenty of institutions, banks and prop firms that people can go work at, but there's only one New York Stock Exchange, and that's what makes it, a very valuable thing to just be, in this area, and to finally actually become someone who could be on the floor full time.
Definitely.
So it's dope. And also, as far as licenses, which licenses did you need to become a trader on the floor, other than the 19?
Yeah, so the 19, because it stands out by itself, you don't need anything before that.
Yeah.
But after that, there's a whole roadmap of other series exams you can and should take to be able to expand to more parts of the businesses.
Okay.
Which is, my next goals. 7 and the 63 have become the standard in finance. That really opens the door to so many different things. And going back to what I was saying about just being ready and preparing for an opportunity, you do need to be sponsored by a firm to get the 7 or 63.
Yeah.
But people can go out and get their SIE right now. You can go and study the material for these series exams. So the second you're sponsored, you can just crush it right away and you're done. It's really doing stuff like that and not just, and Peter mentioned his story, drowning in your own pity when things are going against you. It's finding a way to keep building yourself until the right moment.
Do you currently have the 19?
Yes,
and
I have the
else
19. I did my SIE. I'm scheduled to take the 7 pretty soon.
And obviously you're sponsored by the firm that you're at?
Yes, correct.
Sick. And 7 and 63 is the ones that you're going for?
Yes.
Any other in mind that you have?
There's a couple others. There's some in the 50s and the 20s that are more for compliance and other stuff.
Got it.
It really depends on where I find myself moving into within the company in the next few years. I have a lot of long-term goals, and it just has to make the most sense.
Cool. And as far as your parents, school, you weren't going to classes, did they know about that at the time? Because I struggled with that.
They had an idea. But I was also trading for myself at the time and running my own business, and that was my genuine plan. And I always had that in my back pocket if I ever want to go back to it. Mm-hmm. But they would see that what I was doing, the career I was trying to make, was more important than me going to a chemistry class, which I needed to take to graduate. And that's something I made great friends along the ways. But you don't, especially if you know that you're meant for something else, you don't need college. You definitely need it for a lot of other things. But it was me not being lazy, but prioritizing what I wanted to do with my future.
And I know you're brand new, so this question might be too far, down in the road. Is this a stepping stone for you to other things, or is this something that you want to come here and treat like Peter, for example, or the idea of Benny? How are you looking at the New York Stock Exchange? Is this something you see yourself in 20 years being here?
Yeah.
Or is this something you want to use to get to the next level, obviously with the courtesy of the New York Stock Exchange?
My genuine goal is to find the next way in which this place evolves. You know, we were talking about how there used to be 8,000 people on this trading floor. Everything's become so digital. Now there's a lot of more, algo-based solutions. Everything's a lot more high frequency. My goal is to find whatever the next step for this building and this exchange is and find a way to make the most success out of it. So I want to stay here for as long as, I can, and I want to find new ways to make what was once important will always be important, more important. That's really how I look at it.
And we've talked about a few things privately, but obviously your ideas as just someone coming in is pretty intense. So as far as you being here now, enjoying, what are you seeing and what are you feeling in the morning? Like, is there anything different from the first day, for example, you came in as an intern, as far as what's going on and how things are being, obviously I know how you guys have your own system and, going around. Is there anything that has changed in just 2 years? Because obviously Peter's been here for 40 plus years, it feels like. He's obviously seen different ways the stock exchange has changed and the way he's done things on the floor. Has anything even changed for you yet?
Yeah, so I can't mention specifics, but technology-wise, there's a big change coming soon. Business-wise, there's a lot of firms that have taken separate areas of control in the market, if that makes sense. There's clearing firms that are crushing right now. There's algo providers.
Got it.
There's different buy and sell side guys. The market, or the business of the market, is constantly reshaping all the time. It's changed so much since the 80s. The really cool thing about this place compared to other exchanges is we're still very person-to-person, man-to-man.
Yeah.
There is a market maker for every single one of these stocks that is, providing liquidity and watching how the stock is moving and opening and closing it every single day. A physical broker can go up to that market maker and communicate with them. And that's really cool to me, especially in an age where everything's going online. The fact that we're keeping, the man-made auction process to this part of the market, I think that gives it a lot more stability and a lot more respect.
Same. And as far as, oh shit, hold up. Damn, the question was right on my tongue. All right. This was brought up during boot camp. They wanted me to ask you was, not this boot camp, it was the summer boot camp. They wanted me to ask you, do charts work? Because obviously, like we just talked about with Peter, it's a different way of trading.
Yes.
So let's put that to the side, and obviously it's not the way you guys trade, but do charts work in general?
All right, so I love that we're moving into this. So another exam I took that I forgot to mention was my CMT, which is a chartered market technician.
Okay.
The reason I fell in love with stocks, trading, finance was because of technical analysis. And, since the first day I turned on my first live stream for 2 people, those 2 people were saying this is all BS. It's astrology for men, all these different things. And this is something that's been around for 100 years. And what I really tell people is go back and read, so many different books. Read Psychology by Mark Douglas, read Japanese Candlesticks by Steve Neeson. People used to print out these charts and on pen and paper work the market with it. Charts absolutely do work, but the issue is if your psychology tricks you into thinking they work all the time, that's the error to them. Once you understand their probabilities, once you understand you have to make a system that also matches your emotions in the best way, if you're more of a chill guy, you shouldn't be scalping and using technicals on the 1 minute time frame. Being able to understand yourself helps you understand charts better, in my opinion. They absolutely do work. I was live streaming every single night, even up until I started here, and I was trading every single day. And charts was my main way of making money in the market. Now, unfortunately, Peter also mentioned it, I can't be trading for myself and stuff, but what I decided was let me put everything I've learned about technical analysis into an algo. And now because I can't be day-to-day actively trading in a Discord, how I still maintain what I built on my social media presence was making a trading view bot and giving that to people. And finding cool ways to use technicals, I think that is also going to be really interesting for a lot of traders that have an online presence, because there's now a really saturated marketplace with dozens and dozens of guys making a lot of money but teaching the same thing. And that's why I really like what you do, because you really stand out. You have a very good community feel to what you do. It's not just a plain vanilla, sell a course, send signals, and just go do whatever. You really care. And finding people like that is really cool. That's one of my favorite parts of being here as well, is meeting guys like you. and just being around an environment of really smart people.
And the fact that you say psychology, people think psychology is just the emotional side of things, where it's like, am I sad or am I happy? Yeah, obviously that's psychology because, what you could have set up prior to getting into that trade.
Yeah.
But what I just actually talked about, exactly almost what you said. Last night I said, when you're in a trade and you don't have anything planned prior, your brain can trick you to make anything look biased to how you feel.
Yeah.
So if you're in a trade and you're obviously in calls, you think this is going to the upside.
Yeah.
When you're in that trade and you have to sit there and guess because you didn't do any homework prior to that trade, your brain, the psychology of it, is subconsciously, even if you're not thinking about it, can trick you to make you think any trade looks good in your favor.
I want to actually ask you.
Yeah.
When you were newer as a trader and you're drawing like a triangle pattern or something, did you ever it broke down, you like redraw it so that it's technically like still in the pattern or something like that?
I remember that all the time, and that's why the way I traded 8 years ago when I first started, almost 9 now, I don't trade those wedges and triangles anymore unless it's into a key level. So I have to have something followed up just so I can have extra confirmations.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you bring that up. As far as you not being able to trade, that's one of the rules as you're here. When you did trade for yourself, what are some key things that you used when you were trading?
Very big on the EMA 9, the VWAP for day trading. I like to use fast signal technicals. Candlestick patterns were probably one of the older studies I would still use. Harmonic patterns, which are not as familiar, they're basically like a series of Fibonacci. And I'm sure you've seen like Elliott waves where people draw like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. I don't really subscribe to that type of stuff. But looking for, you just made a 61.8% retrace, you're in a Fibonacci golden zone. And the last 3 times you did X, Y, and Z, there's a 61% chance you're going to do something next. Stuff like that. So
indicators being a lagging thing in the market.
Correct.
So those were your favorite ones. As far as why, how were you using them, in a way? Were you using it live, or was it more of like, okay, this is my bias, I'm using this to kind of guide me?
I would see, and that's really an interesting fallacy with the market and lagging indicators. If you're trading them real time, it doesn't make as much sense. If you're using them to see what happened the last time those indicators presented themselves, what happened in the next 30 bars after that, there's a lot more importance. But the actual execution in real time of the trade, for me, that was mainly more price action, looking at levels, looking at volume. Those are the things I would take more account into during the trade. But it's really looking at the indicators pre-trade to see, just back testing what happened before, just so I can have an idea of what the probabilities might look like.
Were you watching the tape as well, like times and sales level?
That's something I never, ironically, really ever did until I got here. And once you actually understand how institutions work, watching the tape it's bread and butter. It's extremely important. I remember when I was trading crypto, looking at a level 2, that's all BS. It's moving too quick for it to
looks
matter.
Like Christmas.
That is the market right there.
Yep.
And that's something I actually, that's the cool thing about being here as well. I learned how the big money trades as well. And that is very important.
I'm sure you know everything by now, but it's cool to explain it to other people because each, indicator or parts of the puzzle that you're looking at in the chart, whether it's times and sales level 2, is giving you a different narrative to the story. An understanding, the bid might be chasing the ask and for what reason. And I try to always compare things to real life scenarios so it's easier to understand. Why would the buyer be chasing that seller or why would the seller be chasing the buyer, and kind of understanding where those transactions are happening. So it's cool when you compare things to real life scenarios, and it's easier for the newbies at that point. So it's cool that you say that you didn't really get into tape until you came here. You don't really have a choice now dealing with that type of money.
Correct.
It's not like you're trading the way you were before.
Exactly.
But yeah, is that a rule that is for you forever as long as you're here?
I think trading's always going to be dynamic. What's important to me is finding out what's important to our clients. The way that we operate is, again, finding people that want to buy and sell a large amount of money and seeing what they care about. That's where we need to be putting our focus on. So it's constantly seeing what they're seeing and doing what they want us to do. And it's really, having that credibility for yourself. That, of course, I always have the trader mind in me, and I always think, okay, this is what I think is going to happen next. But my job is to execute, and that's something that's a craft apart from just trading. And that's something I also think that retail traders, especially the ones that I've talked to, should focus on more. I think there's a lot of things, and I'd love to talk to you about this more in depth later on.
For sure.
Where even when you're trading for yourself, you can set up algos that you can use for execution, right? You can be a percent of a volume because you understand that when X, Y, and Z has this much volume, the trend is this,
correct,
right? You can set up a time-weighted average price. You can do a lot of these things manually yourself as a trader. And if you're getting yourself 0.05% better fills throughout the whole entire year, and you're a trader like you, that saves you a lot of money over time. And a lot of newer traders, they just market buy, even limit buying. There's so many different ways to work your average, and this is how big money trades stocks, mainly for liquidity. But if it improves your cost basis on every single trade, even incrementally, that's something I would really like to expand into teaching retail people about.
It's funny because people think that you press the market order, it goes through your computer and it just grabs the contracts for you, not knowing where the hell your orders are
being routed. There's liquidity providers.
They don't understand how fast that is. It landed on 10 different desks before it even came back to you for someone to accept. And there's obviously a win from both sides. You got the order, they want something on the other side.
Correct.
And people don't understand that because all they know is buy and sell.
Yeah.
Right? And there's just so much behind. I don't even talk about things like that because it's like people don't even care about that. People care about, just making money fast.
And that's what I think that
it's crazy.
Anyone in the world who's trading should start to understand.
Yeah.
Because the more and more high frequency we become, the more and more a stock halts and then it reopens super quick, and that could, the amount of time that you fill that order can change your position by 5%. The more and more you prepare for situations like that, it expands you as a trader, puts more tools in your toolbox.
For sure. And before I go to the next subject, what's a few things that you could give to new traders out there, or maybe not even just new traders, maybe people who have been trading? What can change maybe a dynamic, maybe some advice that you have from previously, maybe just anything?
Yeah. So especially if you're a new trader and you want to understand how some of these crazy players in the market have gotten to where they've gotten, I think the number one thing that I also definitely could have done better myself is being more patient.
Okay.
A lot of people see the overnight get rich quick and try to dive right into options with weekly expirations and stuff like that, which you can make a lot of money doing that. But building up an account over time, it's really ironic because I think that you tend to see, because you're setting yourself up for good trades when you're being more patient, waiting for the right setups, and that can actually grow your account quicker because then you land on the great setup that's your best trade ever out of nowhere, instead of forcing every single setup and just trying to trade so much so that you can have 20 trades today, even if you have a 90% win rate. Say you're winning 18 of the trades, but that could not be the trade that was meant for you because you didn't put in the amount of research and you didn't scan enough and you didn't share whatever with your like-minded individuals in the Discord, and really filtering down your trades and being patient for the right setups can make one trade be better than 6.
For sure.
And if you do that for every single trade throughout the year, overall that should increase your P&L. I think that's really big. Apart from that, getting a hold on your emotions, there's a reason that all of us talk about it so much. Because you can watch the course, you can read the book, you can understand strategies. That's pretty not easy to get, but if you put in the time, you get it. What's a lot harder is figuring out how to make that work with you as a person.
Correct.
So I think really, and it might sound soft to some people, but understanding who you are as a person outside of trading is so important.
Yeah.
Make sure you're eating right, sleeping right, hitting the gym, doing the right habits, and I like to have some fun every once in a while.
People think it's just a motivational thing that we're trying to...
Everything you do affects everything else you do. That's how I look at it.
And trading can also affect your real life as well. It can help you treat life differently, be more organized, be more patient. And I feel like one of the main things is when I was younger, I played sports a lot. So I was an aggressive hothead. When you're just really into sports, very competitive. When I started trading, over time I saw that decrease because I'm far more patient. I deal with emotions better from trading, and it just transcribed or translated into my real life activities, whether I'm in the gym, in a situation where I need to be more calm. And it's cool to see those types of things.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know you have to get back to the floor because it's 2 p.m. I already know.
All right.
I know your schedule. Last question.
Down.
I know there are hedge funds here, institutions. There are minimums. What's the minimum at your place?
I don't think I can disclose but it's it's in the large amount of millions. So it's not for this to be applicable.
Exactly.
There has to be the money behind it. That's the simplest way to put it.
And I'm just trying to tell them it's very hard to have access to things.
Correct.
Like that.
But as long as keep sticking to it, you keep your head in the game. anyone can get there. I'm still on my way there. All of you should be on your way there. As long as you're happy in the process, that's all that matters.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
Proud of you.
Appreciate it.
Seeing you
I'm going to
from
see you
Intern to
March 6th for the book signing.
For sure. I'll be there.
That's going to be awesome, man.
My guy.
All
Thank
right.
you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.